Hey everyone, and welcome to today's video all about how you can help your team members to open up to you as a leader. My name is Danny Ferrier and I run a business in Nelson called Lead Like a Legend, where you as a business owner can learn the skills to be able to develop your team members and most importantly become the leader that you were always meant to be. So today, learning about how to help your team members open up, there's a couple of factors that create that rapport as a leader for you to be able to help your team members to feel comfortable with you. And one of them is really taking the time to get to know them. And I've talked about this in other videos, so I won't repeat it today, but just making sure that you create space and time within your day so that you can connect to them on an even deeper level and build that rapport. And the next point is to be able to really acknowledge your team members. And that's what we're going to be going into today. Because acknowledgement is a skill. And a lot of people grow up within their family environments and there might not necessarily have been a lot of acknowledgement. And therefore it can become a gap in leaders' skills because they've never truly been acknowledged before. Or maybe you have, but you didn't see the importance of how acknowledgement can really make or break your leadership. So today, diving into acknowledgement and really understanding the benefits of it and how you can take those steps forward to create the mindset to be able to acknowledge your team members. There's a great quote from, I think it's Michael Gerber, and he says, "How do you know when somebody needs a pat on the back?" And the answer is if they're breathing. Because everybody deserves to be acknowledged. And fundamentally, people are doing the best they can with the tools that they have available to them. One of the massive benefits of you being able to acknowledge your team members is that they feel seen. Like I said, everybody is doing the best they can with the tools that they have. And when they can be acknowledged for where they're at, they feel appreciated. But most importantly, they feel that it's okay that they're at where they're at. And I know this can be frustrating as a leader. You want people to be further along than they are, but that's your expectation, and you're the one responsible to coach and guide them to get to that place. But initially, meet them where they're at. And then they will feel that they are supported to grow, rather than there being this pressure on them that they need to be further along than they are, when they literally just can't be further along. If you think about growth, we are all on the spectrum of growth. You start off with low self-awareness, you're building your skills as a kid, as a teenager, you start to develop yourself into adulthood, and then you get to adulthood, and depending on how much you value growth will determine where you are at on this scale. But you imagine you as a business owner, you're here on the scale. Most probably you have solved a lot of challenges that your team members haven't. To start off with, you had the guts to open up a business, which means that you trusted yourself to go into the unknown. And that's a really big step. But your team members who are employees, who are working for you, they might not necessarily have solved a lot of those personal challenges yet. And therefore they'll have a lower, and not necessarily, I'm generalizing, a lower level of self-awareness. And therefore you can't expect them to be where you are, because you've got a totally different mindset, a completely different set of skills and thinking from them. And when we can acknowledge that, when we know that people are fundamentally doing their best because they are at where they're at, because of their upbringing, because of their environment, because of the models and role models and people that they had around them, that's where they're at, because that's what they've learned so far. So when you have an expectation for them to be further along because you want them to think like you or have the same abilities as you, it's actually unfair on your team member, and they feel that pressure and therefore they shut down. So when you're talking about acknowledging where they're at, it's helping them to feel like, oh, it's okay. I am where I am. And then you, oh great leader, will be able to support them to get to their next level, and that is your role. Brené Brown talks about this, and she talks about assuming positive intent. And when you can do that, when your language, when your conversations assume positive intent, then you'll be able to give your team members small steps to be able to help them to get to their next level. Not the level that you want them to be at, but their next level. I've talked about another model in one of my Friday Tips videos, and it's called Pace, Pace, Lead. So when we're talking about acknowledgement, we're talking about pacing their current experience. And you can go back and check out that video, and it's around a very powerful model of meeting someone where they're at, allowing them to be there, asking them questions to understand them, and then leading them with, okay, from now on, we're going to do it this way. Or what I need from you is blah. That's a leading question. But what tends to happen is business owners go straight into that feedback, straight into that leading question. And their team members shut down from them because they haven't been first acknowledged or understood. And then the business owner is giving them a lead or bringing them further along than they can actually handle, and therefore they can't conform. You set them up to fail if you do that. So pace, pace, lead is meeting them where they're at, acknowledging them, and then giving them one step, a stretch question or a stretch lead that's going to help them to be able to see, just shine the light on what else is possible. And then they can commit to it, and you're setting them up for success. So let's talk about how you actually acknowledge. And acknowledgement is about putting yourself in their shoes. So, for example, if you've got somebody who maybe they scuff their feet on a Monday, they are just not into Mondays, and you just wish that they didn't have that attitude. So if you put yourself in their shoes, you think about maybe they've got a really hard family life, and it's just a stress to get out of the house on a Monday, and they get to work on a Monday, and it's just an all too hard basket. And maybe it's because they aren't really that into their role, or maybe it's because nobody ever taught them that attitude is really affecting the way that they show up with their team members. But you've got to imagine that person, and you think, okay, Sally, who has grown up in this kind of environment, she went to this kind of school, she has these kind of friends, you can kind of feel what somebody's like. Imagine them, and you think, okay, Sally, it must be a real challenge for you to have a positive attitude on a Monday when you've got so much going on at home and your mind is just still there when you're having to start work. Tell me more about that. But you've actually been able to understand that from Sally's world, it is really hard on a Monday. She's never been inspired to be otherwise, and she's never had anyone who's cared enough to say, hey, Sally, I noticed that you scuff your feet on a Monday. Share with me what's going on. So once you're able to walk a mile in their shoes and understand them, then you can say things like, for you, in your situation, I completely understand why you have that attitude. Or, I can see where you're coming from. Or, of course you would be that way because you haven't learned how to be in another way. You haven't learned how to be different. So it's sort of that of course mentality. You know, we're all humans and we all have these crazy minds, and there's a million different ways that we can act and behave, but ultimately we're doing it because of our conditioning. So of course we would behave the way that we behave because of our conditioning. And then the next point, step 2, after you've walked a mile in their shoes, is to be able to state what you observe. So I can see how this would affect you, or I can see that this is a challenge for you, or I've noticed that you've really been trying hard and it was a lot more to chew than you thought. Seeing and observing, or I feel that you're just observing what you think you notice in their life so that they can feel that it's okay that they have that challenge, or it's okay that their attitude is like that, because you are helping them see that it's normal. You're normalizing their behavior. So if you love this video and you'd like to hear more about how you can develop your skills as a leader, I would absolutely love to connect with you. Please drop me a message or go to my website, DannyFerrierCoaching.com. Bye for now.